My unfaithful wife barged into my office, her lover trailing behind, shouting, "You disgusting bastard! Get out of this office! Everything here belongs to my family." I smirked, leaning back in my chair, and replied calmly, "Your incompetent brothers handed over every single share to me. You have 10 seconds to leave, or I'll have security throw you both out in front of everyone." The door to Daniel's office flew open, slamming against the wall. Natalie stormed in, her heels clicking angrily, while her lover, Max, followed closely behind. The entire office froze as her furious voice echoed through the room. "You vile bastard! Get out of this office! Everything here belongs to my family." Daniel didn't flinch. He simply smirked, leaning back in his chair, interlocking his fingers. The tension in the room was thick, his composed demeanor a stark contrast to her fiery outburst. "Everything here belongs to your family?" he asked, his voice low and controlled. This wasn't the first time Daniel had faced chaos. As he looked at the woman he once loved, memories flooded his mind, the betrayal, the deception, the moments that led to this very confrontation. Daniel sat in his spacious office, gazing at the glittering city skyline. The leather chair creaked as he leaned back, calculating his next move in a crucial business merger. Life had taught him one brutal lesson. Loyalty was nothing more than an illusion. Yet deep down, he had always hoped his marriage to Natalie would prove otherwise. But hope wasn't enough. Daniel had spent years sacrificing for their marriage. Late nights at the office, skipped meals and missed anniversaries, all to build a future he thought they both wanted. Natalie had seemed supportive, even proud. But now, he questioned if she had ever truly loved him, or if she had simply been waiting for the perfect moment to betray him. For months, Daniel had noticed subtle changes in Natalie's behavior. She had grown distant, dismissive. The nights they once spent together were now replaced with vague excuses, charity events, dinners with friends. Her phone, once casually left on the kitchen counter, was now always clutched tightly in her hand. Daniel was a man of precision. He never acted impulsively. Instead, he observed, gathering evidence, connecting the dots. At first, he dismissed the anonymous photo of Natalie and Max as a misunderstanding. But as he monitored her schedule, patterns emerged, late-night charity events that coincided with Max's business trips, the sudden secrecy around her phone. One evening, Daniel found a receipt for a luxury hotel tucked in her purse. The date matched one of her supposed fundraisers. Each discovery hardened his resolve, preparing him for the moment he would unravel their web of lies. He started tracking her movements, noting every suspicious dinner and unexplained late return. One night, an unfamiliar cologne clung to her scarf. Daniel quietly pocketed it, later confirming it was Max's signature scent. He checked her credit card statements. Transactions at luxury hotels she had no reason to visit. Then the final piece. Natalie carelessly left her phone unlocked on the counter. A single message popped up. A flirtatious text from Max. Daniel snapped a photo before she could notice. Each clue confirmed his worst fears and fueled his determination. An unfamiliar fragrance lingering on her scarf. A cryptic message flashing on her phone when she left it unattended for just a second too long. And then the photograph. A damning image sent anonymously to his email, capturing Natalie in the arms of another man. Max Hudson, a smug, second-rate businessman with grand illusions of power. Daniel didn't confront her. Not yet. He had learned long ago that revenge was best served cold, and he intended to make Natalie and her lover pay for every lie they had spun. The opportunity arrived sooner than expected. Natalie and her two brothers, Luke and Ethan, were shareholders in the family business, a company Daniel had helped expand from the ground up. They lacked business sense, but compensated with arrogance and entitlement. Over the years, Daniel had quietly bought out their shares during their moments of desperation, exploiting their reckless spending and lack of foresight. By the time they realized what had happened, Daniel was the sole majority owner of the company. Natalie had no idea. She still believed her family controlled the company, and Daniel had allowed her to live in that illusion. Until today. That afternoon, Natalie stormed into his office, dressed to impress, her sharp heels clicking against the polished marble floor. Her lover, Max, trailed closely behind. The office fell silent. Employees froze, their heads turning to witness the unfolding drama. Nervous whispers rippled through the room as a few assistants peeked cautiously from behind their desks. The tension was thick, suffocating. It felt as if even the air itself was holding its breath. Daniel remained still, letting the silence stretch, knowing that this was the moment he had been waiting for. The confrontation intensified with each passing second, amplifying the humiliation that was about to unfold. Natalie's face was a mask of rage. Her cheeks flushed as her voice erupted like a war cry. "You revolting bastard," she shrieked. "Get out of this office. Everything here belongs to my family." She glared at Daniel, expecting him to cower, to concede. But he didn't even flinch. Seated with effortless composure, a faint smirk danced on his lips. His fingers interlocked as he leaned forward, locking eyes with her fiery gaze. "Everything here belongs to your family," he echoed, his voice low and deliberate. He signaled to the security guard by the door. "Close the doors." I'd hate for anyone to miss the spectacle. Natalie hesitated for the briefest moment, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. Max stepped forward, puffing out his chest in a weak display of bravado. "You heard her, Daniel. Get out. This is her family's legacy, and you have no right to it." Daniel let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of amusement and contempt. "You mean the shares your incompetent brother sold me," he mused, his tone dripping with mockery. He leaned back in his chair, exuding an unshakable confidence. "The shares they squandered because they couldn't control their greed? Tell me, Natalie, is that the legacy you're so proud of?" His voice was sharp, slicing through the silence with an authority that left no room for doubt. "The shares they threw away in their desperate attempts to cover gambling debts and fund their ridiculous ventures." Natalie's face paled. Her carefully curated facade crumbled under the weight of Daniel's revelation. Her breathing quickened, her eyes darting between the folder on the desk and Daniel's unwavering gaze, searching for any flaw in his confidence. But there was none. For the first time, she saw him not as the accommodating husband she had once taken for granted, but as a man who held absolute power. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead as she clutched the edge of the table, her mind scrambling for a way out, yet coming up empty. That's not possible," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper, betraying the panic rising in her chest. Daniel stood, his imposing frame towering over the two intruders. He retrieved a folder from his desk and tossed it onto the table before her. "Every document, every signature, every share," he stated with chilling finality. "You'll find it all here. I own this company, Natalie. Not you. Not your family. Me." A suffocating silence settled over the room. Natalie's lips trembled as she flipped through the papers, her fury dissolving into disbelief. Max peered over her shoulder, his face losing all color. "You son of a—" Natalie whispered, her voice barely audible. Daniel tilted his head, his smirk widening. "I suppose that's true," he mused, before leaning closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "But you should know something else. I know about your little escapades with Max here. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That you could parade around, treating me like a fool?" Natalie stumbled back, gripping the table for support. Max, sensing the shift in power, raised his hands in defense. "Hey, man, this has nothing to do with me. I was just—" "Shut up," Daniel snapped, his voice cold as steel. "You're nothing but a leech, Max. You latched onto my wife, thinking you could steal a piece of what I built. But you're a fool, and fools like you don't last long in my world." Daniel turned back to Natalie, his expression unreadable. "You have 10 seconds to leave this office," he stated. The room fell into a crushing silence, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioning. Natalie's breathing grew uneven, and Max shifted uncomfortably, his confidence draining by the second. Daniel began counting, his voice calm but resolute. 1. The tension thickened. Natalie's eyes darted toward the security guard standing poised and ready. 2. A bead of sweat rolled down Max's temple. 3. The office held its breath, crushed under the weight of Daniel's authority. Each second felt like an eternity, a slow, agonizing descent into the inevitable. "Leave now," Daniel commanded, "or my security will drag you out in front of everyone here." Natalie hesitated, but the steely resolve in Daniel's eyes left no room for negotiation. She grabbed Max's arm and stormed toward the door, her heels clicking furiously against the polished floor. The security guard stepped aside, but not before giving Max a contemptuous shove as he passed. The office erupted into hushed whispers as the door slammed shut behind them. Daniel sat back down, the weight of the confrontation settling over him. He had once loved Natalie deeply, but that love had been corroded by her lies, her betrayal, and her greed. He stared at the city skyline, his reflection faintly visible in the glass. In the weeks that followed, Daniel finalized the divorce, ensuring Natalie walked away with nothing but the clothes on her back. The media caught wind of the scandal, and Natalie's social standing crumbled. Max vanished into obscurity, his reputation shattered by whispers of his parasitic ways. Daniel had made sure of it, discreetly tipping off Max's investors about his shady dealings, ensuring no reputable firm would ever touch him again. As for Natalie, the divorce stripped her of everything: her wealth, her influence, her carefully curated image. Invitations to the elite social gatherings she once adored dried up, and one by one, her so-called friends distanced themselves. Her world fell apart, piece by piece. Daniel, however, thrived. He poured his energy into expanding the company, proving to himself that he never needed anyone who didn't respect him. Yet, amidst his success, he found solace in the quiet moments, a reminder that true strength came not from revenge, but from resilience. Standing on his balcony one evening, Daniel reflected on the lessons betrayal had taught him. It wasn't his failure to prevent. It was their failure to value him. The experience had shaped him, not as a man broken by deceit, but as someone stronger, more decisive, and focused on a life built on integrity and self-respect. Dismantling Natalie's lies hadn't brought him peace. The realization that he could move forward, unburdened, had. Trust is earned. Respect is demanded. But dignity? Dignity is something you take back when the world tries to strip it away.